senior Tory Neil Parish has been suspended from the Conservative Party after being named as the MP watched pornography in the House of Commons. He's also reported himself to Parliament's Independent Complaints and Grievance Scheme for a full investigation. Now, the chair of the Commons Environment Committee, for that is what he did, handed himself in to the Chief Whip after what was days of speculation. In a brief statement in the last hour, he insisted he will continue to perform his duties as an MP. Our political editor, Kate McCann, joins me now. Kate, you've had a very significant conversation with a former, very senior whip this afternoon. We'll come to that. But first, I think you can call it Westminster's biggest guessing game this week appears to be over.
Yes, Neil Parish has referred himself to the Standards Committee over the issue of allegations that he watched pornography in Parliament and in a committee. And you mentioned there that he'd released a statement. He has, but he's since that statement actually spoken again to reporters on the ground in his constituency, where he said he has the full support of his wife and he will make a decision regarding his resignation or whether he stays on in Parliament after the committee has made its own decision on what happened. His wife, Sue Parish, has tonight also spoken out. She said the situation is incredibly embarrassing. She has said that lots of men do watch pornography, but that she can't understand how her husband has become involved in this situation, and that she does have sympathy for the women who were very offended by seeing what had happened in the House of Commons. As you mentioned there, I have been speaking to a very senior former Deputy Chief Whip of the Conservative Party, Anne Milton. Now, she was responsible for discipline and actually for looking after MPs when she worked in the House of Commons. She's since left the House of Commons. And I started by asking her why we keep seeing these allegations of sexual harassment and bullying inside Parliament.
The culture is set, as I say, by those at the top of the organisation, not just right at the top, but those in positions of leadership. So the Deputy Chief Whip, the Chief Whip, Secretaries of State have all got to set a culture, set a standard of behaviour that is what they want other people to abide by.
Now, it's clear from that Anne Milton has some very serious concerns about the way that those at the top of the party are treating allegations like what we've heard over the last couple of days, but also since then, very senior women, including Anne-Marie Trevelyan today, Cabinet Minister, saying that she'd been pushed up against a wall by a Cabinet colleague, rather an MP, a colleague of hers. So I asked again whether the party is doing enough on this issue.
Well, it would appear not from the reports that we've heard in the newspaper. I think there has been an acceptance of low level, but nonetheless can be very distressing, banter and behaviour that, in my view, should be stopped before it even starts. I think that there is some issue around it feeling very male. We see a lot of men in the public eye. If you look at the press conferences during COVID, if you look at the spokesmen that are put up all the time, it's always men. It doesn't feel very balanced at the moment. I don't think that is the cause, but it doesn't help to correct the culture that must change.
And one of the biggest issues, I've been speaking to MPs across the House about this over the last couple of days, is that there are many female MPs from all parties who just don't feel able to report the kind of behaviour that we're talking about. Some of it, yes, not perhaps as serious, but some of it very serious indeed. And I asked what is behind that lack of reporting.
If MPs aren't reporting things to the Whip's office because they don't think they will be taken seriously or that any action will follow, then something is very wrong in that Whip's office.
Well, powerful words there, Kate, laying blame for this directly at the party hierarchy, Boris Johnson himself, perhaps. What is Boris Johnson going to do about this? The government does seem to be rather quiet on all this so far.
Well, this is the biggest question. There had been a huge amount of criticism, actually, that the MP involved in the particular porn allegations hadn't been suspended immediately from the party. I think there was some back and forth on referring that to the independent committee, but that has caused a lot of anger among MPs who just feel like the party and the senior figures in the Whip's office and around it are not taking this seriously enough. And I think what Anne Milton is saying, which is so significant here, is that over time there has been an undermining of trust within politics. There's been a culture that's allowed to prevail, which has meant that actually people don't find it as easy to report things anymore. And perhaps that has actually allowed some of these more serious incidents to take hold, because that banter and those suggestions of drinking culture and, you know, perhaps somebody's had one too many drinks, that actually that makes people feel like, OK, well, this just happens here because it's a different kind of workplace and we're different kind of people. And that's the problem. Until you solve that issue, then it's going to be very difficult to stop these allegations. Of course, they happen in workplaces around the country, but there is something specific happening in Westminster at the moment, and there is a real feeling as MPs have gone out to fight those local elections, from all parties actually, of frustration, but some female MPs who feel like giving up. They've had enough, they don't feel like they're being listened to, and they're fed up with their own parties actually and their attitude to it.
Well, depressing state of affairs. Kate, thank you.